Cuban government denounced an illegal campaign through social media to destabilize the country. The head of Presidential Security of Haiti, Dimitri Herrera, is expected to testify at the prosecutor's office to clarify his actions during the assassination of President Jovenel Moïse. France celebrated this national holiday Wednesday with thousands of troops marching in a Paris parade. Hello, welcome to From the South, from the TeleSUR headquarters in Caracas, Venezuela. I am Janet Perez Moya. We begin with the news. Stay with us. President Miguel Díaz-Canel urged the Cuban people to remain calm in the face of the media manipulation plan developed against the country and asked the citizens not to be intoxicated by social networks.
Therefore, we have to be very calm, very patient, and very serene. Let us not be intoxicated by the social networks, because what they are trying to do is to create a reality that is not the one we are living in Cuba. They have created a reality of a chaotic Cuba, of an ungovernable Cuba, of a Cuba that is going from an outburst to the next. And they have been so cynical, such liars. They are so weak-minded that they cannot establish an accurate argument, that they have ridiculously resorted to post photos, arguments, and information that are ours and that are not theirs.
The Cuban president described as media terrorists the various hoaxes that has been carried out against the government regarding an alleged repression directed against a small group of demonstrators.
That discourse that they are trying to present, that the Cuban government is repressing peaceful demonstrations, or that they are asking Cuba to respect the opinion of its citizens, is a total lie, a total slander. Those who are demonstrating are not doing it peacefully. They are driven by hatred that has been instilled in them by all that subversion strategy, so outrageously organized, so perverse, so evil, that has been launched in the social networks. It is intimidating. I would say that it is media terrorism.
Cuban Foreign Minister Bruno Rodriguez accused the United States government of involvement in the events of July 11.
June the 15th. Therefore, I accuse the government of the United States of being linked directly and of having responsibility in the incidents that happened on July 11th. And I warn again that it will be responsible of the consequences if they continue with that policy of choking our country, of inciting migration flows, irregular migration flows between both countries, or the permanent incitation of some senator of Florida to use naval forces, or even to use naval forces near to our territorial limits.
Cuban Foreign Minister also said the United States government should listen to its own citizens, that most of them are talking about the end of the blockades against Cuba.
Biden and the government of the United States should first to listen to its own citizens, that most of them talk about the blockade against Cuba and in defense of their own freedom to travel to any place of the world and to receive free, exact information. He should listen to the international community that demands every year with a board that we see the vote of each country, and with debates that leave isolated the government of the United States to lift the embargo.
The Prime Minister of Saint Vincent and the Grenadines, Ralph Gonsalves, showed his solidarity with Cuba in regards to the events that took place in the island, an issue of a statement of Cuba's remarkable and heroic revolution. The Prime Minister stated that the protests in Cuba, which were fueled by unlawful imperialistic economic sanctions, bring into focus the remarkable achievements of the Cuban people and their revolution. Despite the monumental challenge, he highlighted the island's milestone of producing at least 2 vaccines against COVID-19. Gonsalves rejected attempts of certain forces who seek to make the Cuban people's prisoners of presidential and senatorial politics of Florida. Lastly, he urged calm and peace in Cuba as the Cuban government seeks to address its current difficulties and challenge, and called imperialism and its allies to cease their activities against the Cuban revolution and the Cuban people. We will take a short break now. Don't go away. Welcome back. In Haiti, the head of the Presidential Security, Dimitri Gerard, is expected to testify at the prosecutor's office to clarify his actions during the assassination of President Juvenal Moïse. According to the prosecutors, Bedford Claude, who is in charge of the investigation of the assassination, 2 other members of the Presidential Security should have testified already this Tuesday. However, those summoned did not show up since they are still waiting for the general inspection of the police to respond to the request presented by the prosecutor's office to issue the permits required by the members of the security corps to testify. Moïse was killed in the early hours of July 7 at his residence by a group of about 28 mercenaries, most of them Colombian nationals. The threats of the international plot to assassinate Haiti's president, Juvenal Moïse, point to Florida as the epicenter of Colombian anti-Cuban and anti-Venezuelan right-wing extremist connections.
The epicenter of the international connections of the Haitian assassination plot is in the Doral, a suburb on the outskirts of Miami, where the counter-terrorist unit security company has its headquarters. Since 2019, this company is registered in Florida as a provider of customized security products and services to clients worldwide.
El señor Capador, uno de los que está muerto, pero se les ofreció $2,700 mensuales. Yo le pregunté un día, amor, ¿cómo se llama la empresa? Y él me mandó unas siglas que son CTU.
The CTU security president Antonio Emmanuel Intriago Valera is a Venezuelan immigrant who promotes himself as a mercenary and special forces coordinator, as reported by the New Herald. On his website, he offers security consulting, protection equipment, armaments, self-defense training, shooting classes, and uniforms and boots like those worn by the mercenaries detained in Haiti. The public records of Intriago's companies are revealing. In his company, We Are All Venezuela, one of his partners is a man who promised to bomb the Cuban Revolution. He is Antonio J. Esquivel, president of the Cuban Patriotic Junta, an organization that tried to assassinate Fidel Castro on several occasions. In social networks, the CTU security mercenary appears with Ileana Ross Lehtinen, a Cuban-American citizen and former Republican congresswoman from Florida. Despite the graphic evidence, she now says she does not remember even the slightest part of the person in this photo. From Colombia, the compromising images are also denied. The presidential house vows that the photograph featuring Iván Duque and Tony Intriago was just the result of an unsuspecting greeting that occurred during the presidential campaign in Miami in 2018. In 2015, Intriago promoted the idea that Venezuela could be part of the United States, just as it happened with Crimea was annexed to Russia. Various sources claim that CTU Security also offered its services for Operation Gideon, which was signed by opposition politician Juan Guaidó and was aimed at overthrowing, kidnapping, or assassinating Venezuela's President Nicolás Maduro in May 2020. This terrorist operation was executed by Silver Corps USA, another Florida-based company that worked with mercenaries trained in Colombia by a former agent of Donald Trump's security corps.
The Puebla Group condemns former Argentinian President Mauricio Macri's shipment of military equipment, supplies and arms sales to Yanine Áñez. The situation threatens the peace of the region and the peaceful resolution of disputes, generating crimes against humanity and violating international law. They stress the Puebla Group supports and stands by the current authorities of the governments of Argentina and Bolivia and pledge to be vigilant in the judicial investigations. It also calls on the political forces to condemn anti-democratic behaviors such as those carried out by Mauricio Macri and Yanine Áñez. Nicaragua's Supreme Electoral Council continues to develop the electoral schedule for the general elections to be held in November. The electoral body is currently carrying out the process of submitting the forms for the presentation and registration of candidates by the political parties and parties alliance. Between July 28 and August 2nd, the entity will receive their proposals for the position of President, Vice President and deputies to the National Assembly. Around 100 public positions will be contested in the November 6 election, including 20 deputies to the Central American Parliament. Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro was hospitalized after experiencing abdominal pain early Wednesday morning. The president was admitted to the Armed Forces Hospital in Brasilia. Due to the situation, the president's agenda was cancelled, which includes a meeting with representatives of the Senate who are investigating the alleged acts of corruption by the governments with regard to the purchase of vaccines against COVID-19, as well as the management of the pandemic. The head of the state suffers from this medical condition at the time when social demonstrations against his administrations multiply and demand his resignation, as well as economic assistance to counteract the effects of the coronavirus. In Colombia, the murder of Marcos Tenorio Soto, an indigenous leader of the NASA community located in the department of Tolima, have been confirmed. Marcos was found this Tuesday nearby the village of Santiago Pérez in the municipality of Ataco, located in the department of Tolima. The 30-year-old farmer had been reported missing since last June 25. The Regional Indigenous Council of Cauca demands that President Iván Duque clarifies the events and stop the extermination of indigenous people. According to the Institute for Development and Peace Studies, in the past, 92 social and human rights leaders have been assassinated in 2021 and 1,208 since the signing of the peace agreement. In Peru, authorities of the National Jury of Elections warranted that they will be presenting a president to the country before July 28. The spokesman of the organization, Luis Alberto Sánchez, reiterated the commitment of the National Jury of Elections and all its office to fulfill the institution objective, which is to have a president before the end of July. He also pointed out that the exact date to the proclamation will depend on whether or no appeals are filed, the number of appeals and the reasons behind them. In such sense, he pointed out that the National Jury of Elections continue to work checking those appeals in order not to exceed the established deadlines. In Argentina, the registration of political alliance for their primary elections to be held in September 12 has been made official. The eyes are on two leading coalitions, everybody's fronts on the opposition coalition Together for Change, besides defining their candidates for the parliamentary elections on November 14. The process requires the political forces to reveal their strategy to obtain the victory. Due to their electoral importance, Buenos Aires, Córdoba and Santa Fe are key districts for the configuration of the forces in the next parliamentary period. Political organizations are expected to focus their efforts in these areas. In the November elections, 127 national deputies and 24 seats in the Argentine Senate will be elected. More stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back. France celebrated its national holiday Wednesday with thousands of troops marching in a Paris parade, while planes roaring overhead and traditional parties around the country. After last year's events were scaled back because of the virus fears, the event went according to plans. Virus fears are still lurking, but France's government decided to go ahead with the parade anyway, as part of the broader efforts to return to pre-pandemic activity. The number of onlookers was limited and they were restricted to a small section of the parade. In addition, each person attending had to show a special pass proving they have been fully vaccinated, had recently recovered from the virus, or had a negative virus test. Similar restrictions will be in place for those gathering to watch an elaborate fireworks show at the Eiffel Tower on Wednesday evening. Some towns in eastern Belgium saw their streets turn into gush and rivers as a storm causes heavy flooding across parts of Western and Central Europe. The Belgian Meteorological Institute set a red alert for the zone around Liège, some 100 kilometers east of Brussels, on Wednesday, as it expects more rain in a day than the area will normally get in a whole summer month. Several towns were thought to reach because of the flooding in the region. Cars built on top of one another, cellars were flooded, but no serious injuries were reported. Authorities in the Netherlands also warned the heavy rainfall in the southern province of Limburg could turn streams into its flowing torrents, and also urged the public to stay away from them. The European Union went into battle Wednesday to secure a path to its pledge of carbon neutrality by 2050, triggering an epic political clash over electric cars and fuel prices that could last for years. The plan was unveiled by the European Commission and is intended to transform the bloc's economy from fossil fuel dependency to a world of net zero emissions. Brussels also hopes to establish Europe as the unquestioned leader on meeting the goals of the Paris Climate Accord. The proposals include an effective ban on the sale of new petrol-driven cars.
Europe is now the very first continent that presents a comprehensive architecture to meet our climate ambitions. We have the goal, but now we present the roadmap to how we are going to get there. We chose carbon pricing as a clear guiding and market-based instrument with a social compensation. And the principle is simple. Emission of CO2 must have a price on CO2 that incentivizes consumer, producers and innovators to choose the clean technologies, to go towards the clean and sustainable products.
The United Nations Migration Agency reported that the death toll of migrants trying to reach Europe doubled this semester. The figures were published by the International Organization for Migration, which note that at least 1,100 people died at the sea trying to reach Europe in the first semester of this year. During this same period, at least 250 migrants died at sea while trying to reach the Canary Islands in the Atlantic Ocean. The governments of the United States and Russia will hold talks on strategic nuclear stability. According to the Russian authorities, the meeting between the representatives of the two governments will take place within a week. The meeting is part of the agreements reached between Presidents Vladimir Putin and Joe Biden at the summit held last month in Geneva. On this occasion, Moscow plans to discuss with Washington about types of weapons, including nuclear and non-nuclear, as well as defense one, which the Kremlin's opinions can affect global strategic stability. Indonesia on Wednesday reported more than 54,000 new coronavirus cases for the first time, making it Asia's newest virus hotspot. Officials fear the more highly transmissible Delta variant is now spreading from the island of Java and Bali, where outbreaks prompted a partial lockdown that closes places of worship, malls, parks and restaurants. Reported daily cases in Indonesia are now higher than in India, whose district's outbreak is declining despite Indonesia's having far less testing by population. Residents of Myanmar's Yangon's start queuing in the small hours for precious oxygen supplies as the new wave of coronavirus cases surge through the country, with thousands of medical workers on strike.
I haven't slept for the whole night and left my home around 3 a.m. this morning to fill oxygen for my father. I also had to be careful to avoid the soldiers as we are still under martial law. I arrived here at around 3:30 a.m. My number is 15 and there are many people before me. There is no way my sister would have died if we had enough oxygen. We were trying to buy oxygen cylinders with double prices, but we couldn't buy any. Even though we have oxygen cylinders, we could not manage to get oxygen on time.
We have come to the end of this news brief. You can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. For TeleSUR English, I am Janet Perez Moya. Thank you for watching.